I'm Sam Brace, Director of Product Education, and I'm here with
Jenny Spoolma, and I'm a Product Education Specialist here at Simpleview.
And this is episode 1, the first episode of Great Job Client, which is a program that shows you how clients of Simpleview have been using Simpleview systems in really interesting and innovative ways, or just have been highly successful doing so. So we wanted to introduce you to two of our friends, Calista and Matt, who work at Travel Tacoma in Washington State in the United States of America. And they have been doing some pretty cool things with metadata as well as Open Graph tags, thanks to a lot of the trainings they've received from Jenny, which is kind of cool.
It is cool. Calista reached out to us a couple months ago, sharing with us some of the success she had using her metadata and Open Graph tags, and just had a really good story about it. So we took the opportunity to talk with them and wanted to share our conversation with you. So how about we start with you guys introducing yourselves?
Okay. So I'm Calista Klein. I am the Visitor Experience Manager for Travel Tacoma in Pierce County.
And I'm Matt Wakefield. I'm the Communication Manager over here at Travel Tacoma in Pierce County.
So let's get a little bit of context here, guys. So, how did you guys come to Travel Tacoma? What were you doing prior to this?
Ooh. Do you want to start?
Yeah, I was in China, just teaching English and doing nothing of importance. But I had a background in doing public relations for technology companies and for destination marketing organizations. I worked at Visit Seattle before, way back in the day, and then I decided tourism was awesome. So when I came back from China, I hooked up with Travel Tacoma.
Nice.
I studied ecotourism in college at that Western Washington University. So I knew that I wanted to be in the tourism and travel industry. I also lived abroad for a year. I was in Taiwan teaching English.
Wow.
And then, so we both actually have lived abroad in Mandarin speaking countries. So we speak Chinese to each other.
Yeah.
Great, but we're getting better. So after coming back, I was just came back to Washington and worked in a winery for a little while, then was kind of looking for the next move, and Travel Tacoma was hiring. So relocated to Tacoma and I've been here for just about 2 years now.
Awesome.
Gotcha.
And how about you, Matt? How long have you been at Travel Tacoma?
2 years. Yesterday.
Wow.
Congratulations.
Yeah, happy anniversary, buddy.
Thanks. It's flown by.
That's cool. That's actually really interesting that you both have worked in Mandarin-speaking countries.
Yeah, teaching English.
Taking English. So was that a criteria when they were hiring or something that you had to be able to speak Mandarin?
It's weird. I've going around the tourism industry and the hospitality industry in Tacoma. Half people who own breweries here speak Chinese. It's just a weird thing in this industry, in this area. I don't know why, but there's certain things that come out, and that's one of them.
I think part of it too is our location. I don't know why, but I am just always kind of amazed by the amount of Mandarin that I hear just in the grocery store or at the mall or just out on a walk. We just have I don't know, we just have a higher, we have a lot of people who speak Mandarin in this area.
Yeah, it's Pacific Northwest in general, Seattle and Puget Sound specifically, and we're part of the Puget Sound, so you get a lot of Mandarin speakers out here.
Gotcha.
Very cool.
I think it's kind of cool. I like it. I like that little fact about you guys. So what we're here to talk about, of course, today is how you guys are running your website like animals, like freaking bosses. So we got to talk about that. So talk to me a little bit about, based on your experience coming into Travel Tacoma, what had you done with managing websites or working with a CMS platform before that?
So I had done nothing. I kept a travel blog during a backpacking trip one time, and that was about the extent of it. So when I came to Travel Tacoma, I was brand new to CMS and to website management. So I did not know anything.
Yeah, and I did a little bit more than that, but not much. Technology startup in Seattle, and I was doing public relations for them. But you know, in startups, so you wear a lot of hats, and so I did a lot of the web copy and that kind of stuff. So it wasn't so much of the CMS side. I did get a little bit familiar with the CMS side, mostly with like the blogging modules and just the layout of the blogs. That was kind of my purview there. So yeah, a lot of it was just that, and then over here, again, small shop, so a lot of hats to be worn, and websites have to be one giant hat that can fit a few people in it.
We're all under that hat.
Yeah, it's a giant hat.
Well, and speaking of that, like, so how big is the team that's managing the website right now? So it's obviously you, Calista. It's obviously you, Matt. Who else is your team right now?
Kind of us, and then Jamie. Yeah, Jamie's is the boss lady. She's the vice president of marketing, and so she kind of oversees our department. So to do more of the day to day with it, but then she I guess she realized she was vice president, that she had competent people, somewhat competent people, more competent people, and we're working there. So we started taking that over piece by piece, and now it's kind of our sandbox.
Great.
That's great. So because Calista, you came in and you're saying you had little experience. I mean, obviously, a travel blog is interesting, and I'd love to talk more about that eventually. But what? No. Okay.
It's not.
Oh, okay. And Matt, of course, PR background, but Seattle startup, and yes, startup people wear tons of different hats. What did you know about metadata or Open Graph data before all of this took place?
So again, I didn't know anything about it really. I am still learning about it, but from what I understand, metadata is what search engines look for, right? That's more or less it. When you fill in the metadata of the meta tags, that's like what Google is looking for. So yeah, that's my understanding. But I really didn't know anything about it before working here.
Yeah, for mine, it was just an annoying field that I had to fill out back when I was doing more of the blogging over at the startup. So it was this annoying field I had to fill out every time before I could post a blog post. And so a meta tag, I just thought of some keywords, didn't really care about SEO, the SEO value of those or search terms when I was doing them. It was literally just, oh, this is a story about real estate in Los Angeles. Okay, meta tags, real estate, Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And like, that makes all the sense in the world, but so it wasn't, I wish I knew now, I wish I knew then what I know now. Like, I would have said, like, homes, looking for homes in Los Angeles as my metadata. So, yeah.
Awesome. So then how would you explain the turning point for you in deciding to invest more in using those meta tag fields?
I think it was clearly when we started seeing the things that the posts and the pages that we actually put effort into. We saw these crazy returns on a few key pages where we had done that, and we noticed, hey, this is like the best performing page of the entire year. I wonder what we did differently. Oh, this one's also a great performing page. I wonder what we did differently, and then went in there and saw, oh, those are the ones we actually really paid attention to, the metadata and the opening graph data. So that was my eye-opening moment. Calista, do you have a different one, or is that?
Mine was the training, because I had written a few of our blog posts, but I pretty much just did header, description, blah, 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 and I skipped over all the other stuff. And so after the training that we did, that's when I kind of started using it. So.
Awesome.
I think that was the post where I first saw, like, wow, this is the one we put time into, and it's the one that it just absolutely killed it. It was our most visited page of the entire website history.
Yeah. So keeping on the metadata theme, do you want to tell us about the story you shared with us from your 4th of July post?
So obviously we put together, I used to write event and blog posts, so just things going on in the area. And we try to do one for most of our major holidays. So for 4th of July, we had a roundup of, hey, here are all these great things to do in Tacoma for the 4th of July. And we have a really big event on our waterfront called Freedom Fair. And it is an awesome event run completely by volunteers. And so I think one of the things that, when you're volunteering, you only have so much manpower, and so a lot of it was going to like the day of production, and the website was not super strong, and so our blog post ended up having some of the details or some of the questions that people were looking to find. And so when they were searching for, oh, you know, what are the best fireworks to do, or the best fireworks in Tacoma, or the best things to do for 4th of July in Tacoma, our blog post was popping up. And so a lot of that has to do, I think, with using the meta tags and just the strength of our website as well. So it ended up setting a record then for our, was it website traffic in a day, or like in a time or something like that.
It's by far still a record.
So we got, it was
That's
kind
amazing.
of a perfect storm of timeliness and content that people were looking for, and then I don't know, just it was just a kind of a good timing thing.
No, it was, a lot of it was just the meta tag though. We were able to keep the title on the blog post something really conversational and really kind of something like not clickbaity, but yeah, clickbaity. But then have the search terms embedded into the meta title, and that's really what got people there. People were looking for like fireworks in Tacoma, and that happened to be the meta title, and it just, yeah, I mean the actual event where all the fireworks were, I mean they got almost no traffic out of it, and we were the top result that came back, and it was just, apparently as the sun goes down on the 4th of July, everyone wants to know nobody plans ahead. Like you can look at our web metrics and tell you how few people actually plan ahead for these things, because it was just like no traffic, then a vertical spike, could not be more vertical. I mean, it was like Bitcoin like 2 months ago. It's just nuts.
That's awesome.
So when it comes to like, now that you've done this and you've seen obvious success through various tactics, what type of strategy do you guys have with your meta as you're starting to develop new blog posts or new pages, or maybe going back to previous posts or previous pages? What type of strategies are you guys employing to make sure you get similar or attempted to similar results?
I can,
Yeah, that's yours.
Sorry, I just skipped it on my mouth.
Okay.
So we, right now, whenever we're doing a new blog post, the new blog module actually kind of sets it up in a different way. So you actually you're prompted to input metadata and open graph information in the new blog module. So that's something we always do now. And with pages, when we go back and edit pages we've already done, we make sure to include metadata that's based on keywords, like anticipated keyword searches. If it's a page that we see a really good, we have the SEO module through Simpleview. So when we see there's a page that's getting a ridiculous amount of traffic, or like a 16,000% growth over last year, we want to make sure that we're actually optimizing that one for the search terms. So we go back and use Google's keyword finder, and make sure that the keywords we're including in our metadata and opening graph relate back to those things that people are actually searching for. So it's mostly whenever we go back in old pages, we do that, or when we're making new pages. We don't have a concerted campaign right now to go back and update the old one, but we absolutely should.
Oh, that's good to know, though. Yeah. So, like,
Yeah.
when you're looking at like the page and the content and all that, like, what are you actually like using as a way to say like, oh, this should be a keyword or that should be a keyword? Is there any like tactic or strategy you guys are doing with that, or is it just like gut feel, or like what? How do you do it?
We do it.
I just do gut feel.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll check it on, I don't know, I think about, okay, if I was going to visit someplace, what is something that I would search for? Because I found, for me in the past, you know, like I would get caught up in these very specific words that people don't actually search for, you know, like when they're saying, oh, I'm going to go to Tacoma, what should I do today in Tacoma, you know, as opposed to like events happening in Tacoma, you know, so I just kind of go with my gut feel.
Yeah, you think like a searcher, not like a DMO.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crucial.
Yeah.
I think that's where a lot of the success came from. Just to add a little bit of scientific side of it, we use Google Keyword Finder, but also through Simpleview's SEO module. Heather over there walks us through this. She shows us what main keywords are, what our main opportunities are, and then we can go back and change metadata based on that. We can go back and change titles, our headers, And so I think a lot of it is that's just gut feel and trying to think like a searcher and not like a marketer. But some of it is also those the keyword research from those tools.
I think that's great advice.
Yeah, I do think it's really good advice. And I like that point that you were making about thinking like a searcher rather than
Right.
like a DMO. And I think that's really important. Why do you think that's important? Because I think one of the things that we're hoping to be able to do is take this advice and this information and allow other DMOs to be able to do something with it so that they can be inspired by the work that you guys are doing here. So what made you realize that thinking like a searcher is important?
I gotta say my piece on this one.
No.
There's certain words that DMOs use, and as I've done a lot of travel writing and like I guess editing, and there's certain words that we use all the time. And I talked to journalists, and they said if we hear one more pitch from a PR person from a DMO who says that something is a hidden gem, it's a bucket list item. It's
Yeah.
like, and so they call out all these phrases. They're just like those are just automatic delete emails. And so I started realizing that I do that a lot when I'm writing because it's easy and lazy, but it's something that no one would actually search for, but it's something that we want to say. So thinking, I kept finding myself writing what I wanted to say, not necessarily what my audience needed to hear. And that translates over to your content as well as your keywords, because those are the things that people are searching for. You don't want to be writing what you want to write. You want to be writing what people are going to be searching for. So that's just talking to journalists and then realizing the fault in my own writing was part of the reason that I got on this big tear. I just wanted to rip apart the website and fix all of our metadata.
Calista, are you kind of in the same frame? Like you've realized like there are just some terms that you have to be careful with, or like whatever like strategies or thoughts go through your head when you are working on the meta for like the blog posts?
Yeah. So I guess I think sorry, I'm trying to like figure out how I want to say this. I've noticed that the more that I try to like, I don't know, write for, I guess I feel like if I get caught up in like those specific words like DMO lingo and like hidden gems and bucket list, things like that, it feels like I'm trying to kind of shove it on people. Like I'm trying to almost like overmarket, like, hey, look at all these awesome things that we have to do. And it feels like I'm forcing my destination on you. Whereas if I kind of take a step back and like, hey, this is more of like a casual approach. We're not trying, we are trying to like get you to come to our destination, but I don't want to sell you on it. I'm genuinely proud and happy to be where I am. And I want to like share all these great things. I want to tell it to you. I don't want to like shove it on you. And so I guess, I don't know. I don't really know how I want to phrase it.
I think you say that authenticity is a practice. You choose it every day.
Yeah. Oh my God.
That's inspirational.
Good job, Matt. Good job.
Oh,
there you go. And that's true. It's absolutely true. And I like this point that you guys are making here.
I totally inauthentically stole your quote about authenticity.
Does that answer?
That's a great answer. That totally answers the question.
Yes, I feel very good about this.
And I think it gets to like the heart of the matter of why it's important that you write a good meta too. So I love it.
Yes, it does. So now we've talked about meta.
Yeah, let's talk about Open Graph.
Yes.
So that's kind of a little bit different, talking to a different audience, social media platforms. What was your experience or knowledge getting you into start using the Open Graph fields?
I got it. So for me again, social or Open Graph was, again, I didn't really know too much about it until the training. So now I like having the control when I'm writing blog posts of knowing that this is the description and the header or like the title that people will see when it's shared on social media. So I didn't know very much about it, and now I use it all the time, or every time I write a blog post.
Yeah, and you had a really, sorry to interrupt you, Matt, but you had a really interesting process, Calista, before you started using Open Graph that I feel like other people have probably used too. Do you want to talk about how you used to like fake Open Graph a little bit?
Yeah, so our social media manager, obviously, she handles like Facebook posts, Instagram, all of that jazz. And so whenever we do a blog post, we try to put it out on Facebook as well. But I wasn't using this like the Open Graph fields. And so what I would do is I'd write my blog post, I'd send her a link like, hey, here's my finished post. When you put it on Facebook, can you put this description with it? Can you use this title? And here's the image that I want, I want you to put when you post it on Facebook. And now we can just simplify that because I can go ahead and fill it all in the, on the back end of the blog and then just say, hey, this is ready to go out on social, and she can just send it right out.
Awesome.
So you streamlined that for me at least.
I didn't know you did that.
Yeah, I used to have to do that every time I send Lisa.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so it's much easier now.
That's a
Yeah.
good thing, yeah.
And that's awesome because that means that if anybody else ever shares the link to your post, they'll also have it looking the same as you, as compared to just when Travel Tacoma shares it. So,
Yeah, which is really nice.
yeah. How about you, Matt?
I just use it as license to get a little bit clickbaity. Like, here's the top 10 top 10 coffee shops in Tacoma and Pierce County. You won't believe number 7.
That is clickbaity.
Then, yeah, number 1, you probably have a punch card.
Yeah.
Like I think it's just a little bit of a license to take a little bit more casual approach on something, rather than having to write for keywords. You're actually writing for, you're not writing for Google, you're writing for your followers, and you can kind of dig into who those are just through Facebook's analytics and that kind of thing. So you get to know your audience pretty well. Like, you can when you dig into your Facebook analytics, you can see pretty much like what people's interests are, and so that can tailor what kind of content, but also how you talk to them through your open graph.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
I think that's wonderful. And I think it's a really good point that you're also making here, because everything that we've been doing here with Meta, where we're doing Open Graph, it's all really trying to increase engagement with your site and whatnot. So I think it's wonderful. Now, in terms of your social presence, we've talked about Open Graph and how it helps with that. What exactly are you guys actively using for your marketing for Travel Tacoma? Is it Facebook? Is it Twitter? Is it LinkedIn? Is it Instagram? What are you trying to do to expand that social profile right now?
Yes.
Well, good.
All of the above.
Is there a specific network that you're investing most of your time into? Are there ones that are kind of more like secondary networks at this point?
Yeah, it's almost all Facebook. We kind of made a conscious move away from Twitter. It hasn't really been. I've seen other DMOs use it really successfully, but for our audiences, they tend to like Instagram and Facebook. We still haven't cracked the code on Pinterest, but everyone we talk to, like half people seem to say it's the best thing ever. Half of them say, I don't get it, I'm not going to do it. And we're kind of in the latter.
Gotcha. And Calista, when it comes to that social side of things, is there anything that that you're actively doing when you're writing your blog post to make sure that it translates well to those types of platforms?
This sounds bad. Not really. I kind of just write my blog post, and usually Matt will actually come up with the topics, and then I will execute them. And so I think that, Matt, you're really good at coming up with topics that tend to do well on social media. Like, hey, check out these top 5, top 5 places to see if you have 4 hours in Tacoma or whatever. That's not a blog post, but it could be.
It should be.
Yeah, just
It will be.
So I think that I don't have an active strategy or active social media audience in mind when I'm writing them, but the topics that I'm given just tend to do well on social, because it's those lists and those things that I think are
That makes total sense.
easy to check off and do.
One of the things that nobody at DMOs really talks about, but we should probably find a way to have this conversation, is that our audiences in general are people who might travel to our destination, but most of our social audiences, most of every DMO social audience is local people. And so we don't, nobody likes that fact because it shows a big disconnect in who our ideal audience is versus who our audience is. But writing things, keeping writing things for the visitor, even though you know that it's going to be shared, liked, and tagged more by locals. And so writing content that appeals to both audiences, your ideal audience and like your aspirational audience and your actual audience, has been one of the keys to our success here as well.
Well, and that's interesting because like it's something that I think that we've seen a lot when we talk with various customers, that if you take a look at their Google Analytics and you look at like the top 6 regions that they're coming from, in a lot of cases is people that are in your market. And then of course you could extrapolate that those are locals in that case. So is there anything that, because you know that you are going to get local traffic, which could be people that live in Tacoma and Pierce County, is that a case where you're doing anything with your meta, your open graph strategy, knowing that there's going to be certain terms that locals are going to more respond to or not respond to?
No, I think that, well, because I used to write a lot of event blog posts, and so I think if you include like a big event that's going on in the area that people know about, and then it's happened like year after year, and people are going to be searching for Freedom Fair or for Festival of Trees or for whatever, if you can include that in your, kind of get in on that search and say, hey, here's this event, we've got Festival of Trees information, but there's also all this other great stuff going on. So I think for a local audience, like using some of that, those things that people already know about, and then suggesting something new on top of that is really, has been really good for us in the past. Yeah. Yeah.
No, I think that's I'd say that's pretty, yeah.
Thumbs up to you, Calista.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we haven't touched on yet with Open Graph is images.
Yeah.
So because that's the difference, because of course Meta, you're writing from a search engine. Open Graph, it does allow for you to define that primary image. Is there any thought that you guys typically look at to say like what image should we lead with? Is it normally just whatever is like the header or the primary image of the post, or is it sometimes different, or is it do with like maybe accentuating a certain portion of like what do you guys use as your consideration points?
I usually, if there's an image that's good for the header, it's probably going to be good for the open graph image. We used to do kind of banners where they would have some text overlaying the image. They would have then like kind of a really shareable, Pinteresty feeling text tag on it. But we've kind of gone away from that just mainly because like there's 2 of us who do the whole blog on the web, so we didn't have time to be editing images every time. But I think I saw some better results with that one in terms of sharing like 14 images that'll make you want to visit immediately kind of thing. Like that, like I mean that's just huge. When you put that text over an image, that gets much more clicks for Open Graph, so it's better, it's more shareable. But overall, I think nowadays we pretty much just have whatever image goes with the post or goes with the page is the same one for Open Graph.
Yeah.
I wish I could say something more like how awesome we are about and diligent we are about that. But
yeah.
Do you have any?
Usually the header image will be the same as my Open Graph image. The only thing is I might change the dimensions a little bit because at least for blog posts, like the header image is kind of long. I think it's a rectangle, like a long skinny rectangle. And then for Open Graph, you can use a better, like a fuller sized image, I guess.
Yeah, that's smart. Yeah, so do that.
So that's all I do. But it's usually the same image, just cropped differently.
Gotcha. Would you say that you have any best practices along those lines for how you're choosing what your header images for the post of the page are that would kind of correlate, or is that just kind of whatever you have as well?
To your content. For social media too, I usually try to find pictures of people doing things if possible. So like if it's like zoo lights out at our zoo, try and find pictures of people with the lights instead of just, oh, this is a really cool light up crab, but we'd rather have like people out there, interacting with the graph.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something that I think Jenny and I both try to emphasize when we're in trainings is
Mhm.
more people and pictures as much as you can.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad that you think the same way, Calista, on that.
Yeah, I think, and just including those text, I really wish we did that more. We should do that more. Getting putting like the text over the image. I feel like that got a lot more shares back. It's easier to share a post that has an image that for some reason also has the text related to the story in the image. So yeah, I'm putting that on my to-do list.
I'm glad we inspired you even further. This is wonderful. This is wonderful. So,
as I talk about best practices that I don't actually practice.
all right, so we've covered Meta, we've covered Open Graph, and we've gone through all of that stuff. What am I missing here? Is there anything else?
I guess if you were to summarize any of your advice for other DMOs who are not using metadata and Open Graph, why would you encourage them to give it a shot?
Because you want to set records on your web traffic. It's pretty clear that you do this, you get that. I mean, it's that post is the best. Like that one blog post, it happened to be timely. It happened to be it had good content, good metadata, and it was the all-time. It like doubled our old record. I think it's still double, maybe even triple what our other best performing page in the history of our website has been. And it's just because we were able to find people who are looking for something in the moment they're looking for it using metadata. So when it comes to metadata, think like a searcher. Think about events that are coming up that people are going to be searching for. So make it timely and just don't leave that field blank.
That's what I was gonna say too. It's like you're going through all the effort to like create all of this content, and it's good content. So if just filling in like an extra few fields, in the CMS can push that in front of more people or get that out to more people, it's like, why wouldn't you do that? You're spending all this time to like write this blog post or make this page. So let's do everything we can to get it out there for the visitors.
Yeah, I just like to think of what people would type in, what people are going to be searching for that would get them to our page. Like what we want, what would our ideal person who would go to this event, what would they be searching for that we want them to find our page? Mm-hmm. So kind of working backwards.
Mm-hmm.
I like it.
That's wonderful.
I think that's
wonderful
all
advice.
very good pieces of advice. Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. Well, good. I think we've covered everything we want to cover. And of course, thank you for taking the time to talk to us. If there's anything else that people wanted to ask you about, like, are you guys willing to like talk to other clients if they want to get inspired about metadata and Open Graph strategies that Travel Tacoma is doing? Are you guys open to that?
Of course, yeah. Why reinvent the wheel?
Let's do it.
Well, good.
There's so much good information out there. Every DMO has their success stories and things they've learned the hard way not to do. I mean, we should be sharing this kind of information. So hit us up.
Send us emails.
Woo! I like it.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Well, thank you again, guys. I appreciate this.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us for this episode.
Yeah, if you have a story or you have a success that you'd love to share, we would love to hear from you and share your story with the Great Job Client episodes as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you can see, our email addresses are there at the bottom. And also remember that Matt and Calista are friends that you just heard from. They would love to hear from you too if you have any questions about how they're implementing metadata or Open Graph data. So also feel free to email them with the email addresses that we're showing for them down below here as well.
Thank you.